Hello, Career Pathways participants. Welcome to Meet Your Executive Coaches. Today, we're going to take a moment to sit down with your executive coaches and get to know them a little bit more. Today, you'll be meeting Charles Story, Lisa Crow, Lawrence Hamilton, and Wendy Amada. Now, before we get started, take a moment to grab a journal or any other writing materials, and as you listen to these interviews, write down some questions you may have for the executive coaches that you can bring to our live call together. Great, now let's get started.
It's my pleasure to introduce you all to Charles Story. He has been one of our executive coaches for a very long time, since the beginning of Career Pathways. So hi, Charles, welcome.
Thank you. How are you, Manuela?
I'm well.
Good.
We want to get started by getting to know you a little bit more, Charles. So could you tell us more about who you are? What's your background, your work experience, and why you became a coach?
My name is Charles Story. I have an executive coaching firm, ECS Group. This is our 16th year of existence. Prior to that, I was president and CEO of an organization called Inroads, which developed interns in business engineering and computer science for careers in corporate America. So I was the CEO of that organization for about 13 years. And 2 weeks after I retired from that position, I started my executive coaching firm and have been doing it ever since. And as Manuela said, I am, I guess, the only original coach left from the beginning of Career Pathways. So this has been an assignment or an engagement of pure joy for me. As I say a lot, I enjoy Career Pathways folks because they lead with their heads and their hearts. And some of my corporate work, people tend to just lead with their heads and not too much from the heart.
Charles, so now we would love to learn more about what it would be like coaching with you, maybe your coaching philosophy.
Well, my coaching philosophy is one of inquiry. In other words, I ask a lot of open-ended questions. I shy away from being directive. I believe leaders oftentimes have the answers, and my job is to help them through an inquiry process, kind of to discover the answers for themselves. So I do a lot of what I like to call options management. So we have there's an issue or situation that we're talking about. I oftentimes will say, okay, let's talk about what option A would look like. Let's talk about what option B would look like. Let's talk about what option C would look like. So the leader can play that out for themselves through my guidance. And oftentimes the bell rings, ding, 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 at a point in which they determine for themselves which of those options or a hybrid thereof may be the most appropriate way to go. So I like that a lot. I like to talk about real-time business issues with my clients, in addition to anything that they may be working on from a development standpoint. That's fine. We have to look at the development opportunities that they may have, but also I like to lean in on kind of real-time business issues that they're dealing with, and I can help be a guide and support for them on that. And I think I can add more value that way, given my experience of having been a CEO and seen a lot and done a lot. I've served on a couple of corporate boards of directors, so I've been behind the boardroom doors, and I know what people are talking about behind the boardroom doors. So I try to bring that kind of practical experience to the table. I don't talk a lot about theoretical and conceptual stuff. I consider myself a practical coach. So we'll get down and dirty and lean in on some practical issues that the coaches might be dealing with in a real-time way.
I love that. And Charles, could you talk a little bit more about why this program specifically is important to you?
Well, it's really important because obviously we're talking about the next generation of diverse leaders in the foundation community. There's a lot of change in the foundation world, a lot of retirements, and I'd love to have a hand in or be supportive of those folks who are in the program who ultimately, in fact, will be the next generation of leaders. There have been a number of leaders who've come out of Career Pathways who have ascended the ranks and become heads of foundations and senior leaders in foundations. And to walk down the road with folks along that career journey of leadership is always exciting to me. A lot of people have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the top of that pyramid is self-actualization. So every day I go to work, I like to work with Career Pathways folks to get as close to career self-actualization as possible. That's where I get my motivation from. So that's part of why I do what I do with Career Pathways.
I love that. That's incredible. Well, let's have some fun and talk about some success and failure. So For you, what does coaching success look like, or what are some stories that have helped you feel like you failed inward?
Well, I'll take a shot at both. On the career success side, there are several people who've come out of career pathways that I like to reference. So for instance, LeJune Tabron at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation came out of career pathways, and when I was working with her, she was the chief financial officer of that organization, and ultimately ascended to the rank of president and CEO. You guys may have heard of Brennan Gould, who's the president of the Charlottesville Community Foundation. That's a hell of a story, because Brennan was only a director at the time that she and I started working together, and she ascended from director to president. That doesn't happen a lot. And Brennan and I have developed an incredible relationship. So I still work with Brennan. In fact, I think we've been working together now for about 4 or 5 years. So I'm walking down that path with her as CEO. Maggie Osborne, another career pathways person who's just named the president of the Maryland Foundation. I can't remember the exact name. I think it's the Maryland Philanthropy Network. So she just was named to that. She's a career pathways person who I've continued to work with. I guess Maggie and I have been working together for 7 or 8 years now. So I just love, again, walking down that career path with people. In terms of the flip side and failures, fortunately, over 16 years, there have not been a lot of them, but I do remember a case where I was working with a gentleman who was working with an engineering firm in Birmingham. He was assistant to the chairman. And we just couldn't connect. I mean, the chemistry just wasn't there. I tried my best to try to be as open and honest and candid and listening to him, but he just wasn't at a place where he thought that coaching could help him. I guess he said to me, he said, Charles, at one point I remember like it was yesterday, he said, Charles, I am who I am. And I just don't know if I can change. And so if a person is not willing to change and being open and transparent and vulnerable, vulnerable enough to allow themselves to change, coaching just doesn't work. So I haven't had many of those situations, fortunately, and I haven't had any of those with career pathways participants. So I don't anticipate there'll be a problem with that.
Yeah, it's about growth, right?
It's about growth. It's all about growth. All about
Yeah.
transparency, and it's all about growth.
Yeah, and we're grateful we have great participants that are ready for that challenge when entering this program. Well, so how about we end together, which I think it's a great transition into this, what you were just talking about. What would you want your future coachee to know?
Well, when you work with me, you get all of my passion, because as I said, I've been doing this for 16 years, and I'm a true believer in coaching and the difference that it can make. So I lean in to my coaching engagements. I tell coachees, even though we may have formal scheduled coaching sessions, that they can call me anytime. During working hours, after working hours, I'm just there. I believe in what I do, and I believe in this program, and I believe in the people in the program. So the main thing you need to know is I'm coming at this with complete passion and belief in the process. I'm also bringing to the table all of the experiences I've had in terms of being a CEO and coaching for 16 years, being on some corporate boards. I just bring a lot of my experience to the table and try to add value. That's what every day I wake up to do this coaching thing, I say to myself, how can I add value today to my coachees? That's what I do. I'm trying to add value in whatever way I can. In terms of any pet peeves I have, this kind of goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. If a person is not open to growth, open to exploring themselves, or open to getting better, open to being transparent, open to being vulnerable, coaching just doesn't work as well. So I would just hope and suggest and encourage, whether you work with me or one of the other coaches, to go into this thing open, to try to say, hey, I want to get better. I know I got somebody that's assigned to me that is dedicated to my growth, dedicated to my development, dedicated to my career trajectory, whatever that trajectory is. And if you go into it with that open mind of transparency and openness and vulnerability, to all in an effort to try to get better, I tell my coaches all the time, it'll be like taking a chainsaw through butter. It'd be like taking a chainsaw through butter.
Today, I have the pleasure to be interviewing Lisa Kroll, who is one of your executive coaches. So today we're going to learn a little bit more about Lisa and what it would be like coaching with her. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Lisa, could you start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, your work experience, and why did you become a coach?
Yeah, so my work experience is pretty varied. I've worked in education with nonprofits in the corporate world, and I've had jobs in sales, in marketing, in recruiting, in culture, in HR, and professional development, all of them really having to do with people and interacting with people. And, I decided really young, probably in my early 20s, that I needed my job to be very meaningful and I wanted it to have a personal impact on people's lives. And I got my first taste of that in my mid 20s when I started managing people and really got to help develop them with their strengths and their individual ability to be the best versions of themselves. So I found coaching when I was about 30. So it took me a while, but I was relentless. I needed to have a job that was really meaningful and meaningful for the people that I was working with as well. And so I've been coaching for about 14 years. And what I do now is work with organizations where I'm helping them design leadership programs and facilitating them, or individually coaching executives or leaders in an organization, or coaching with an entire leadership team because you can make a lot of difference that way. And why I became a coach? It is the perfect combination of two things that are really important to me, which is the fact that I believe I was put on this planet to help people to grow into the best versions of themselves. And I also really like developing really intimate relationships, like really getting to know people. But I also want to have a big impact. And so by working with leaders, I can develop very intimate relationships, but then it also allows for this exponential impact through, their work.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get a little bit more into what coaching would be like with you. What is your philosophy? What do you want to create within your coaching?
With my coaching, I really look at it as a triangle. It is the person that I'm coaching with, it's me, and then it's the coaching relationship, which is actually at the top of the triangle, and that's the most important part. So it's really in that coaching relationship, the power is in that coaching relationship and the respect that we have for it and how we honor that coaching relationship. And that coaching relationship is completely in service of my client. And so my coaching philosophy is really, I think I could break it down into three things, which is one, how do we increase your self-awareness? Self-awareness is the foundation of any kind of personal and professional growth. And working with leaders, it's so important for people to have self-awareness about their unintended impact and how their behaviors impact other people. And when you understand and when you have an awareness of your unintended impact, now you can do things with intentionality instead of doing it unconsciously. So the first step is increasing self-awareness. I think the second is self-acceptance, because sometimes we can be really hard on ourselves. And so I think the second step is being able to embrace, okay, that's me, or that's me right now. And you have to embrace that and accept that before you can move on to the third step, which is self-empowerment, which is, okay, now I know this about myself. I accept this about myself, and I want to do something differently. And so I'm going to do that.
That's powerful. I love that. Could you share a little bit more about some coaching success stories or even some failures that have helped you learn?
I feel like the successes is slightly a trick question because, there are my successes, and then or what I could consider to be success, and there's what the people that I coach with consider to be success. And I think some of the easy ones are, someone got the job that they wanted, or they got the promotion that they wanted, or a leader was able to run a facilitation that the way that they wanted, or they were able to lead a group, their leadership team through strategic planning in the way that they wanted. But I really believe that success is in the small moments where people are able to show up in the way that they want. And I think that those events happening over and over and over is success, because I personally think success is when people are able to be themselves, their best selves, bring their strengths, and contribute to their organization or whatever their goals are in a really authentic way.
That's great. Could you share why this program is so important to you?
Where I focus my coaching is in diversity, because I think that leadership needs more diversity. And so this is where I focus when I'm coaching with people. And this is why it's so important for people to understand their strengths and be able to bring them forth, because there's so many people who take themselves out of the running because they think, well, I don't look like my bosses and I don't act like my bosses. And it's like, exactly. And that's why we need more people like you.
No, I love where all this is going. How about we end our last minute with, what would you want people to know about you and your coaching?
A couple of things. One, coaching is not a place to get advice in the sense that, oh, I want to let go of responsibility. This is a leadership program. And so one of the things is to realize, I have a lot of influence here, or I can build influence. And so to really take responsibility for the decisions that you're making. Also, leaders can be really hard on themselves. They're perfectionists, they are overachievers, and coaching is messy. It's not linear, And so what I ask is that people who come to coaching come open and honest and with a growth mindset, and that they really kind of invest in the relationship, right? Because I'm completely here for their growth and development, and they need to be here for the exact same thing. So, and I think the last thing I'll say is, as your coach, I am in service of you. I am not here to be above you, or if anything, I'm below you, but really we should be side by side, right? Right there next to each other, kind of like going on a hike, pointing out different things to each other. This is a partnership. It's co-active, which means we're both actively participating in the relationship. And I think if someone can show up like that in their complete and true self, then we're going to have a lot of fun together.
It's my pleasure to introduce you to Lawrence Hamilton, one of the executive coaches in our Career Pathways program. Today, we're going to spend some time getting to know Lawrence a little bit more and what it would be like coaching with him. So Lawrence, hi, how are you? Welcome.
Very good, Manuela. How are you? Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good. Okay, Lawrence, well, we want to get to know you a little bit more. So can you tell us about your background, your work experience, and why you became a coach?
Sure. Background, I've spent almost 3 decades in human resources. Half of that time I spent as a chief human resource officer, first with a company called Linvatech, a division of Bristol Myers, and then later on with Tech Data, a technology distributor. Undergraduate and graduate degrees in political science. I have another advanced master's degree in human resource development from George Washington. I became a coach, quite honestly, after completing my HR career and thinking about other opportunities that were out there, and thought it was a very natural transition to move from a human resource executive role into an executive coaching role. Similar kinds of skills, similar kinds of opportunities. However, it's very different coaching for performance than it is coaching for development. And so I see that as being the primary difference between the HR related coaching and the executive coaching that I do today.
Great. Well, I would love to know a little bit more around what it's like coaching with you, Lawrence. So could you tell us about your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I've been affiliated with the Pathways program now going on 5 years. So I've coached several different cohorts over that period of time. My philosophy really is to meet people where they are. People are at different phases in their own development, in their own career. Some people are ready to move up to the next level. Others are trying to figure out what it is that they want to do next. And all the others may be right in the middle. So I tend to try to figure out where people are at their particular point and juncture of their career and decide what are the next steps. Coaching is a journey that we take together. It's really not, it's not advice. It's not counseling. It's not therapy, but it's really having the coachee understand a bit about where they are and how they want to pursue their particular career objectives. And for me, I think it's really valuable of just meeting people where they are. I kind of take a bit of a push-pull philosophy. Sometimes coachees need to be pushed to do something different than what they're doing. Others times they need to be pulled into an idea or a concept. And so my major, I guess, if you will, outputs in terms of coaching is really trying to help someone get to the point that they want to get to. I also think it's very important for coachees to hear, their own thoughts. In graduate school, when we were working on dissertations, we would say, how do we know what we think until we see what we write? In coaching, it's really, how do we know what we think until we hear what we say? So really giving people the opportunity to hear themselves speak out loud, their hopes, their dreams, their concerns, their fears, and then making sure that we understand what they are and kind of give them a tag or a name and deal with them directly, as opposed to dealing with them, silently, which is often just impossible.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. Could you tell us a little bit about why this specific program is important for you?
I was introduced to the Career Pathways program, as I said, several years ago, and I found it fascinating that executive foundation leaders had such little development opportunity. I coach a lot of Fortune 50, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 folks who have a lot of resources, a lot of opportunity for development. But in the foundation of this program, it really provides folks who haven't really had exposure to higher levels of executive development. And they just are very, very thirsty. They're very thirsty. They want to know as much as they can. This is a wonderful career experience, and people literally have transitioned themselves into a variety of different opportunities simply because they participated in this program and were able to focus on their career development outcomes. So I'm really kind of geeked about working with foundation executives because heretofore they haven't had a lot of opportunity. And what I find that's really interesting about the folks who are in this world in philanthropy and the foundation world is that they're so focused on helping others, they spend so little time focused on helping themselves. So this is an opportunity for the first time probably in their career where they're able to focus on how can I develop me to the highest extent possible.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Lawrence. Let's get a little bit into success and failure and what that looks like for you. Do you have any success stories or even failure stories that have helped you learn how to fail inward?
Yes, I guess for me, I don't really use the word failure a lot. I think that everyone kind of moves along a particular path. There are going to be times where folks are not getting to the point where they want to get to as soon as they want to. And I don't view that as being failure. I just view that as being slowing the pace a bit and making sure you're covering all the bases. I have had people during the program who've been promoted. Most recently, I just someone in the 2020 program has just taken a job as a CEO of a major foundation. I've had folks who took a COO role in a major foundation. And 2 years ago or 3 years ago, one of my coachees has taken the CEO role of a foundation in which he works. So I've seen people elevated to the top areas. And then I've seen people who simply just identified development opportunities for themselves and have found other chances or other opportunities that they could pursue. Sometimes it's literally just putting the program together that's going to take a little bit longer than the time we are actually coaching. But in another 12 months or 18 months or 24 months, the things that we put in place prior to that are now coming to fruition. I continue to get announcements of people that I formerly coached who have been elevated and moved into senior roles and senior levels. In fact, I just got one recently, someone who was at a foundation in New York, just took a director level role. So, it happens all the time, and it may not happen within the time frame of our coaching, but at least we're laying the foundation, the pathway, if you will, not the overused career pathways. We're laying the pathway for their success.
Oh, that's the truth. Thank you so much for that, Lawrence. So let's end our time together with what you would want your future's coachees to know?
Yeah, I think it's important that the coachees take the coach time as being an important time for them to focus on themselves. So often, you'll find that we'll get scheduled or rescheduled, and things come up. But really, lean into being there, prepared to talk, on time, raring to go. Nothing is worse than to get a late cancellation because you're taking the spot of someone else who I may have as a client, maybe someone in the career pathways program who wanted that time. So really, take the time to lean in, to be present. Each coaching session is different. I may have a particular subject that I want to cover, but you may decide during that time, hey, Lawrence, I really need to cover on this. Something happened between our last coaching session and this coaching session that I want to kind of uncover, unpack, unwind. And that time frame is your time. So we remember, we have our own plan, but it's your time, and how you're going to spend that time is most important.
I'm very excited to welcome you and introduce you to Wendy Amara. And we're going to learn a little bit about Wendy today. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manuela. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about the Career Pathways opportunity, and I'm excited about coaching these amazing leaders.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you here. So let's get started and really learn a bit about you. What's your background? What's your work experience? And what really brought you to wanting to become a coach?
Yes. So I fell in love with coaching and the profession of coaching about 16 years ago. So I actually built a career in nonprofits, in nonprofit management. So I can relate to a lot of what these leaders are facing in the world of philanthropy, in the world of nonprofit. And the reason I went into nonprofit work, this was out of college, out of undergrad and graduate school, was because I wanted to be a change agent. I knew I wanted to make a difference, especially with people of color. I wanted to be an example for what was possible for people of color. So I specifically chose the nonprofit world to work in. And then through my own personal struggles with depression, anxiety at times, my own mental health issues, I started looking at, well, what are other possibilities for my life where I can make a profound difference, right? And have some flexibility in my schedule and still be able to be there for my family and be there for the goals that I wanted to reach. And through my own personal journey, one of the things that I discovered that worked really well for my particular type of brain and personality was coaching, because coaching is very action oriented. And I felt like in coaching, I was given a set of tools that I could then go implement the next day, and it would make a difference. It would make a difference in my career. It would make a difference with my family. So simple tools, and that's a part of how I coach, is teaching simple tools that are implementable. They're simple, but they're not necessarily easy for people to do on a regular basis. And that's really my specialty. That's how I fell in love with coaching. That's what brought me to coaching 16 years ago. So I've been coaching for a long time.
So let's get a little bit more into that coaching, style and what it would be like coaching with you. So what would you say is your coaching philosophy?
Yes. So my coaching philosophy really is that my clients come to me because I hold the container or the space for them to have a really honest, vulnerable, real conversation with themselves about what they want to achieve, what are their goals, a space for them to be able to gain clarity and make some decisions, and then take action on those decisions. So I really see myself as a guide that holds space where there's very few spaces where people can get really real and honest with themselves, especially about things related to career and work and how they're really feeling about what's happening behind the scenes at their office, or the politics, or something that happened with their boss. We can talk about all of that. This is a safe space to talk about it. Not only to talk about it, but also to gain clarity and make decisions. So I see myself as a guide that asks the really important questions. I think that's what we do at the core as good coaches when we're really great at what we do. We're asking really great, profound questions that have our clients open up new possibilities, start looking at things maybe from a different perspective. As a guide, that means I also bring my toolbox, what I like to call my toolbox of all these great tools that have to do with leadership, that have to do with communication. I teach on something called Be, Do, Have. I teach on something called enrollment, which is the art of actually motivating and inspiring other people to take action on what you want them to take action on. Really important for management, really important for leading individuals. So I bring that toolbox into the coaching relationship, and then I actually teach them these tools. And what's most exciting for me in terms of coaching, and what's at the core of my coaching philosophy, is that it's not just about understanding the tools or learning to understand yourself even deeper. It's about implementing those tools, taking that awareness that you now have with yourself and using it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the workplace so that you actually produce results, whatever the results are for you, whatever you decide you want to work towards. So I'm very result oriented in my coaching. It's not just about having a great deep conversation, although that's valuable too. It is. It's super valuable to have a safe space to be really open and honest. But I always want to take it to the next level, which is how do we then take what happened on this great, amazing coaching call and have you actually use it in your meeting on Monday morning or during your staff orientation on Tuesday or whatever it is, right? How do you implement and then see the results? Because that's where the growth is. The growth is in the taking action on a consistent basis. Yeah, that's my coaching philosophy.
And I think that's what's important to acknowledge in this time that we have when it's 5 months. You want to get right into it, and being able to come out of it with a couple of those big moments that you feel like you're really growing on is so important. I think that goes perfectly into this next question that I have for you around, well, what could leaders or participants that want to coach with you, how should they prepare themselves to make the best out of the opportunity of coaching with you?
Yeah, I would say I always love when clients come, one, prepared for the call. So that means like on time with a pen and paper to take notes or technology or something to, laptop to take notes on. Because I do say in my coaching calls, write this down. This is really important for you to remember, or write this question down. Yeah. And more important than that is really coming with an open heart, an open mind, and being available to building that coaching relationship, because it is a dance. It's not just you're coming to get something from me. It is a relationship that we're building. And at the beginning, what we're really working on is trust, right? Building that trusting space so that you can be 100% vulnerable and open and honest. Those are the foundations of a good coaching relationship. Are you willing to tell me what happened, after the meeting when you had to run to the bathroom to cry or whatever it was? Those are the situations that I really want to hear about, because that's where the growth lies. And oftentimes the growth lies in uncomfortable places that aren't that comfortable. So that's why we tend to avoid it. And I say, bring all of that, bring all the questions, bring the uncomfortableness, bring your authentic self. This is a safe space for you to be authentic and real and kind of take off even the professional hat if you need to take it off and just be like your personal self. I'm a really big fan of coaching on whatever's happening in your life, because whatever's happening in your life is certainly affecting your work experience. It's affecting your profession. It's affecting how you show up at work. So let's support you with processing what's happening in your life so we can get back to supporting you in your career and really stepping into those leadership abilities. Yeah.
Absolutely. You need to know yourself before you implement, but it takes that level of vulnerability, openness, and you preparing yourself mentally, physically with the tools that you need to be able to show up and be present in these sessions. It's wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about your experience with coaching and what you've seen, and maybe would love to hear about some success stories that you've had with your coachees, or even maybe those situations that didn't go as well as planned, and maybe why you think that happened.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that. So in terms of success with coaching, I have so many examples of clients who just have leveled up in their career, right? So I tend to work a lot with women in nonprofit or women in foundations. So I have a client in particular at the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. She actually started as an intern and then moved up to an assistant. And then when she started coaching with me, she was at a program associate level. And she was doing really well, but she was starting to get overwhelmed. And they were piling on her work from other, which I think is very common in the workspace, right? Where somebody else quits and then you end up doing half their job also in addition to your own job. How do you manage that? And how do you communicate that in a way that creates a win-win with the organization, or creates a win-win with your boss? So we worked on some of that. And what actually ended up happening is she was offered a promotion, which was great because she was doing the work of what a program director would be doing. So she ended up getting the program director position. We're still coaching. Her company pays for the coaching, in fact, because they have seen the value of having her really be able to own what she's managing, and also be able to own her own voice. What I mean by that is being able to negotiate within the workspace of what she's willing to take on, and also creating boundaries around, well, that's not technically under my umbrella, right? How can I create a win-win so I'm not piling on more work and then working 50 hours a week for the same pay, right? So she got a promotion, which is great. And we were able to create some boundaries through really excellent communication skills with her boss on how to manage the workload, which is something that I help a lot of my clients do. Because a lot of my clients come to me with like, I'm working on 10 projects, but really under my job description, I should be working on 4 versus the 10. And there are things that I want to let go of, but I don't know how to create a win-win. How do I let my boss know in a way that doesn't have me just leave that work, right? And it actually helps the organization when we as leaders are more focused, when we have exactly how much we can like take on our plate and are still open to being a team player. And there's a way to do that. There's a way to have these conversations with your boss. And that's part of what I teach. So she's been an amazing, I also have another client at the International Women's Media Foundation. She's doing amazingly well. Also has gotten a promotion, also have created boundaries around work. Also have, because this is something that happens when you get a promotion, when you move higher up into leadership. Like if you started off as a program director and now you're VP of programs, right? How do you then interact with the same staff that used to see you as their counterpart, but now you're the one leading that agenda? And there is a re-education process that happens when you continuously step into new leadership roles. There is a process of what I call enrollment, which is motivating people and inspiring people to continue to follow you now into this new phase of leadership. There's a way to do that that has people feel open, has people feel inspired. And that's a lot of what I worked on with her. So those are a couple of examples of leadership clients that are skyrocketing, that are moving up in their career and are doing really well.
That's incredible, Wendy. And I love your win-win philosophy. I can't wait for you to get and be able to share that with everyone else here.
Yes, it's one of the tools in my toolbox.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Wendy. This was so wonderful, really being able to sit down and get to know you a little bit more. Is there anything else you want to leave the participants with, what they should know about you, or any other nuggets of wisdom you want to share about yourself?
Yeah, no, I'd love to share. Listen, I'm a daughter of immigrants. My parents came here from Guatemala in the 1970s. And because of that, I was taught that, I really had to go to school, go to a good school, right? Get a master's degree eventually and, build this really big career. And that can feel like a lot of pressure. And it doesn't just happen with immigrant parents. It also happens with the American dream parents, right? That teach you got to go to school and you got to have all these check marks. And there was a point in my life where I looked really good on paper, but I was miserable behind the scenes. Like on my resume or in my LinkedIn profile, it looked great, but behind the scenes, I was really struggling. I was struggling with coworkers. I was struggling to take on more work. I was struggling with time management, and life management. So this is part of why I came into coaching, was to help future leaders learn how to manage all of that, because you can absolutely manage your career, still have time for your family, for other things that you want to do, and also make your career into what you want, right? Put your priorities on the table. It takes learning some skills so that you have other people say yes to your priorities, but there is a way to do that. And I'm super excited to work with all of you to support you in learning how to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wendy. It was so lovely sitting down and getting to know you a bit. All right, everyone. So now take some time to absorb all the coaching that you just heard of our wonderful 4 coaches and get ready for making the most out of coaching in your live session during Welcome Week. Thank you, everyone.